This is one of their mobile kitchens, and they actually...
Is that even some, what I call habitual...
Beautiful Stop and Shop in the Wilton. Penalty, but it was actually a tax, and that it... Absolutely. What's the name of the show? Good evening and welcome once again to the Marty Heiser Show. I know what you're thinking. How can you possibly have a talk show tonight because the New York Rangers are playing against the Montreal Canadiens? But this is a full service talk show coming to you, to your living room, and I will not let this show go by without giving you scoring updates on that all-important hockey playoff. This is the NHL playoffs. These are original 6 teams. And let me tell you this, the series is tied 2-2. And at the end of 2 periods, in Montreal, in their barn, the score, Rangers 2, the Montreal Canadiens 2. So there's 1 period left. I promise to give you, anything happens, I will let you know. Much like 2 weeks ago, when the Trump administration sent 59 Tomahawk missiles into Syria, to the very air base that the chemical weapons were flown out of. It happened on the air. We brought it to you live. That's how we roll here at the Marty Heiser Show. And a week ago, this Thursday night, a Moab bomb, that's the largest non-nuclear bomb in the U.S. arsenal, was dropped on a tunnel complex in the mountains of Afghanistan, not far away from a place called Tora Bora, which is where we originally bombed Osama bin Laden. And it took out, they've had some bomb damage assessments, something like 99 ISIS terrorists were taken out. That too happened on a Thursday night. So we're coming to you completely live. So if anything happens, we will break in and give you an update because in a lot of ways there's a new sheriff in town. And tonight we're going to be talking about American foreign policy and how it differs from the previous administration. Just to give you a taste of the previous administration and what they were up against and how different it is when you juxtapose the foreign policy that we have now against the Obama administration. You'll recall the poison gas attack that happened in Syria during the Obama administration, and the response was a red line. But then they were doing the moonwalk, not unlike Michael Jackson, if you recall. Well, was it a red line? Wasn't it? Can't we agree? Guess what? They've agreed to get rid of all their chemical weapons, so we're going to be fine. We don't have to do anything. Let's have the British vote on it. What do you think, UN? Let's get some advice. What about the guy down the street? And nothing happened. And they played with you. They said, no, don't you dumb people understand? We got rid of the sarin gas. They agreed that everything was going to be okay. Much like the Iranian deal that we have right now. We gave them $150 billion, but check, double check, poke a needle in my eye if I lie. They said that they would get rid of the poison gas. The Iranians said that they would get rid of their nuclear deal. Now, there's a new sheriff in town. I can hear the echo of Ronald Reagan. Trust but verify. All of a sudden Reagan or Trump sees something like gassing of little babies in diapers, and he says, to hell with that, and all of a sudden the Tomahawk missiles start flying. Is it an invasion? Is it boots on the ground? Is it regime change? You break it, you own it? No, it's the new Trump philosophy. I'm gonna bomb the S out of him and then see what happens. So we saw it. It was limited. It was, and by the way, for all my liberal friends out there that think that Trump won the election because of Russian collusion and how somehow he's a puppet of Vladimir Putin, the bare-chested guy on horseback with a rifle, you think that's really going on? If your narrative there that the Russians put Trump in the White House and now he's just a puppet, how do you explain the bombers flying over Alaska, the Russian bombers right now? How do you explain Tomahawk missiles being fired at Syrians and they gave Ivan 30 minutes to get off that airbase? You're gonna have to come up with a different narrative. How about he doesn't pay his taxes? Oh, Oh yeah, he opened up, or someone got his 2005 income taxes. He paid $34 million in taxes in 1 year. You guys are running out of narratives. You might want to stick to war on women or racism or something like that. Come up with something. But anyways, the election's over. We already got a Supreme Court justice, and get used to President Trump, because it's not only 4 years, but it's most likely going to be 8. Before we get into any more of this, I want to just show you, take you a little trip down memory lane. This is the Obama administration and how they dealt with the Syrian gas.
People reportedly killed, including at least 10 children, hundreds of others injured, and these numbers are very preliminary. What caused this? Right now, it's seen as a gas or chemical attack.
Do you think ultimately that President Obama is the big winner here?
He is a big winner in my estimation.
It turns out we're getting chemical weapons out of Syria without having initiated a strike. So what else are you talking about?
We've got the chemical weapons. We're getting the chemical weapons out of Syria.
Well, Chris, all you have to do is look at the fact that today, the final 8% of chemical weapons were taken out of Syria.
We should commend the administration for the result that they got. The removal of chemical weapons out of Syria is a substantial accomplishment.
We certainly worked with them in Syria to bring all the chemical weapons out of Syria.
We struck a deal where we got 100% of the chemical weapons out, 100% of the declared chemical weapons out of Syria.
We kept chemical weapons, or got chemical weapons out of the area.
We got, as you know, last year, all the chemical weapons out of Syria. No small feat.
Syria eliminating its chemical weapons and ultimately having them destroyed by the international community.
Syria would still have a declared chemical weapons stockpile. Right now, they don't. Right now, Bashar al-Assad does not have a declared chemical weapons stockpile. We removed that declared chemical weapons stockpile, and we destroyed that declared chemical weapons stockpile, which means that Bashar al-Assad can't use those chemical weapons against his own people.
And the purpose of the strike was to get the chemical weapons out of Syria. Weapons of mass destruction are taken out of the zone of conflict. And thank God we did that. We are making real progress in Iraq and Syria. And I mean real progress. If Russia can help us, and it is right now, Russia has helped bring about the Iran nuclear agreement. Russia helped get the chemical weapons out of Syria.
The destruction of the Syrian chemical weapons stockpile.
I would have if I had said, yeah, chemical weapons, that doesn't really change my calculus.
Yeah, don't you miss the good old days when we had a feckless foreign policy like that, where we were deluding ourselves, where it was happy clappy, Obama can't do any harm. I mean, you gotta love the cheerleading from the mainstream media. You don't see much of that anymore, do you? No, Donald Trump is the worst monster you can imagine. You don't see, well, Obama's the big winner here because he made a red line, then backed off it. We lost all credibility in the Middle East. We lost all those cities in Iraq that American men bled and died for, Raqqa, Fallujah, the list goes on and on. What about the condescending approach? Oh, you silly people, don't you understand what a good thing we did? It was good that I did that because Syria got rid of all their chemical weapons. Well, we see it on TV. You saw, they didn't get rid of all their chemical weapons. I saw an estimate today that they still have 3 tons of some of that sarin gas, and the stuff is hideous. It's just, I just can't stand being lectured to by them, and I'm so glad that all of them are out of power and have gone back to the faculty lounge where they can't do any more damage. And now we have Rex Tillerson as our Secretary of State and General Mattis in charge, and the adults are in the House. Speaking of adults, we have diplomat Leslie Lebel joining us. Thank you so much, and I'm privileged to have you on the show. You were in the Foreign Service. Mrs. Lebel served as the Minister Counsel of Political Affairs at the U.S. Mission in the European Union in Brussels. This is big time. Prior to that, she was a political advisor to the Commander of Stabilization Forces in Bosnia-Herzegovina. This is in the American sector in Toulouse, and then in SFOR headquarters in Sarajevo. You'll remember they had the Olympics there a while back. Other assignments included Russia, the U.S. mission to the United Nations in New York, Bolivia, Germany, and Poland, as well as a year as the diplomat in residence at Yale University. She speaks French, German, Russian, Polish, and Spanish. Thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
I really appreciate you coming in. Is my analysis in anywhere getting close to the truth? Is there a new sheriff in town? Is this a good thing? Is this a bad thing? How does this all work?
Okay, I agree. There's a new sheriff in town. I think things are going to continue to be in flux. I think that what we saw, we had 8 years in which we did a lot of things that hurt us. Not everything, but a lot of things that hurt us profoundly. We alienated a lot of our allies. We lost important things. The red line in Syria was an important mistake. The Iranian agreement was a dreadful, wrong thing to do, and it was done deliberately. So I saw some articles within the past week. Okay, let's say Trump launches cruise missiles against military bases in Syria and he drops a big bomb in Afghanistan. What's the plan? What is the national security strategy? My expectation will be that will take a little time to emerge. You don't start with so many problems in so many places and bingo, the next day you have it. And remember something else, they are only now beginning to build their team. There isn't even a Deputy Secretary of State. There's Tillerson, and then there's a bunch of people. He may or may not know some of them, but since he was never in the State Department, it's kind of by chance if he would know them. There are people who were very sympathetic to the Obama administration or to Hillary Clinton or whatever.
I've heard upwards of 97% of the State Department voted for and contributed to the Hillary Clinton campaign. Similar in the Department of the Department of Justice, the Department of Labor, the Department of the Interior. These are vast.
I think you have to assume that you're going to be dealing with people. The Foreign Service, I was told when I joined that you were supposed to serve either side of the administration to the best of your ability. Whoever won the election, you served them. But it is also true that the State Department is overwhelmingly liberal. Now that doesn't mean when it comes to a specific policy that you're going to have bad advice. The person talking to you may be somebody who really has very good common sense and is suggesting the right thing. It's just hard to tell. And every administration brings in people that it knows or trusts. The problem here is that Trump isn't a regular politician. He didn't have a group of people that he worked with for years. So he doesn't have that cadre of people, and he's only beginning to build it. And that's difficult. Let me come to my point, though. I found out this morning what he's doing, or at least what some people are doing. His national security advisor is McMaster, former general. There's a woman named Nadia Shadlow, who was here in Westport for a number of years. She originally was a civilian employee at the Department of Defense. And when I retired, everybody said to me, "Oh, look her up, she's great." And I did look her up, and she was great. She was at the Smith Richardson Foundation. Well, I opened up the Wall Street Journal this morning, and she has been, according to the article I read, appointed to join the National Security Council to prepare a national security strategy report. Now, this is interesting. She just published a book. The book is about war and governance. In other words, no, but you come in, then what do you do? This is where we went wrong in Iraq. This is where we went wrong in Libya. You come in and you can blow things up. But then what happens?
Well, let me
So I just to finish. So I go and I look up her book because it's brand new. I look it up on Amazon, and lo and behold, one of the guys endorsing it is called Mattis.
Oh, really? General Mattis.
So I conclude that these guys are serious. That they found a person who has been working hard on a subject that interests them, and that person, reportedly, is going to be working to develop the administration policy. I would say that's good news.
Okay.
I call that very good
so
news.
So is it oversimplifying it to say, like we said, there's a new sheriff in town, but there's a more muscular, more forward-leaning approach to foreign policy, both in enhancing our relationships with our allies and our friends. Benjamin Netanyahu all of a sudden is allowed in the front door of the White House, not the back. And supporting NATO and supporting our friends. And then the word has gone out to our enemies. This is echoes of JFK's inaugural speech. Let it be known from this generation will defend our freedoms. And then that's backed up with concrete action, where you saw in Syria, they use chemical gas. They use sarin gas, which is some of the most hideous stuff you can imagine. And there's already UN laws that they've broken and violated, so he was in good standing to do that. And then dropping the Moab bomb, mother of all bombs, on the network of ISIS. Yes, ISIS, not the Taliban, but ISIS in Afghanistan. Isn't there a sense of, this guy's not afraid to pull the trigger?
Well, he is, but I think the point is also good. You have to think what happens after you pull the trigger.
Yeah.
So let's back up a moment. We found out who was very, very deeply involved in foreign policy under Obama. It was Ben Rhodes.
Yeah.
He was a master of fine arts.
Yeah.
Wannabe novelist.
He just helped out a lot with the campaign.
So now instead you have two guys of a certain age. They both had careers.
Yeah. Tillerson
said he didn't want to be Secretary of State. He wanted to retire and be with his grandchildren.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then Mattis, retired 4-star general.
Yeah.
And it's not like he has to prove himself.
No.
So I read some other article that those two gentlemen have dinner one night a week.
Wow.
Well, when I was in the State Department, I don't remember that kind of collaboration with the
Secretary
Department
of Defense
and the Secretary of State sitting down and say, okay, both of them are new to politics, if you will. Not new in the sense that they've known a certain thing about it, but it's very different when you're doing it. Very different.
I would imagine.
So they're sitting there and they're saying, okay, now what do you think, what do you think, what do you think?
Mm-hmm.
There's a long ways to go. It was a big mess. This is a new team. All the undersecretaries and they're all missing.
Yeah. Is that a terrible thing, or is that maybe
one wonders,
do more with less? I mean, I think sometimes, that was a big thing with the Trump campaign, is they would say, well, Hillary's raised so much more money, she has so much more staff, and yet Trump kept beating her and beating her. I saw a breakdown of the dollars spent per vote in New Hampshire, and well, I guess that was Jeb Bush was spending like $2,300 per vote he got, and Trump's was like $90 per vote or something like that.
Well, that is true, but on the other hand, if you don't have people, the world is big. Mm-hmm. Let's say you're going to think about North Korea this week.
Yeah, that's my next question.
Iran is not going away.
Yeah.
Okay, so somebody has to be working on things when you are busy doing something else. Mm-hmm. And there's nothing like trusted lieutenants, people in whom you have confidence. Mm-hmm. They don't have those people. Yeah. They didn't have people. They didn't rise up through political ranks in a way where they made those connections.
Right, right.
So they're missing that part. Although, I will say, the proposal is to cut the State Department by 28%.
Right. And, which the businessman in me says, wow, if they got 28% fat, that's not a bad thing.
Well, what I think is very interesting is the State Department had among its senior ranks, according to Hillary Clinton, hundreds of people who knew about her email arrangement. She's the one that said it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sure
I don't really
did.
believe it was that many, but it was both political appointees and there were career people like Patrick Kennedy that knew that.
Yeah.
They said nothing for 4 years when she was there, and 2 years after, when there were these obvious national security leaks and tremendous damage potential.
Sure.
So if you came in as Secretary of State and you wanted loyal discretion and being careful, where would you begin? You'd fire them.
Yeah, I mean, there's
so
a couple metaphors.
Thinking,
there's the drain the swamp. There's the emperor is not wearing any clothes, which is a kind of a famous story about the emperor that marched naked through the town, and no one said anything because it's the emperor. That's what Sir Hillary was all about. No one could say anything. And it's interesting because there's books coming out now where she would be violent and upset, but no one could say anything to Hillary, and she was so out of touch it cost her the presidency. Okay, let's tie this together then. So you have Trump foreign policy, which is different. You have 49 Tomahawk missiles fired into Syria. You have the Moab bomb that landed in Afghanistan. But what I see emerging is a willingness to act, a willingness to back up our foreign policy with action, yet falling short of nation building, of trying to put in a new guy. Even today, when he had the news conference with the president of Italy, or the premier of Italy, he talked about we're not going into Libya. We're doing too much already. So I don't think he wants to empire build. I don't think he wants to go down the same road. I'm talking about Donald Trump. But I think his willingness to act will get someone's attention, and hopefully it will get the attention of the guy with the really awful haircut in North Korea.
Well, we're about to find out.
I guess.
Now, this is a new world. This is where Tillerson finishes up a trip, and he says, our policy of the last 20 years with North Korea has failed.
It was strategic patience or something like that.
Well, that was Obama. But before that, let's not blame this all on Obama. I mean, this goes back to Clinton, Bush, and then Obama. It's a long time of pursuing policies that, whether they were well-intentioned or people tried to design them right or what, I don't know, they didn't work. That's the bottom line. Now, maybe it's a very hard problem. It is a hard problem.
Right.
But I find it refreshing when a Secretary of State says, we cannot continue to do what we've been doing because it has failed. I don't remember any Secretary of State speaking that clearly. Do you?
And not only that, the two other examples of clear speaking is Vice President Pence goes over there and says we have the shield and the sword, and he, in case it was lost on anyone, he said this president has shown a willingness to act, and he cites what I was just citing, the Tomahawk missiles in Syria, the Moab bomb in Afghanistan, and he's willing to act here. The time for strategic patience is over. And then the other clear thing, and this is where everyone says, oh, he's not presidential or whatever, the tweets, it's terrible. I find it all incredibly refreshing, Donald Trump, that is. And he talks about having dinner with the president of China and saying, listen, as far as these trade policies we're working on, currency manipulation and everything else, you do me a solid with that crazy guy in North Korea, which he can, and that'll help your trade deal. And he's like announcing it. It's always been sort of understood that there's a quid pro quo there somewhere. But Trump is just like, he's just making a deal like, listen, I need a zoning change here, and I'm going to build you a park over here. Let's make a deal, that kind of thing. And who knows? It could work. What we've got so far hasn't been working. I mean, and I remember Bill Clinton saying, oh, we had a great deal, and we're going to give them all this money. And North Korea now I'm talking about. And invariably, they've come back, they developed their nuclear program, they developed these intercontinental ballistic missiles, and they're continuing to test, and they're just sticking it in the eye of the Western world. And Trump's like, this isn't going to go on, and I've got my new buddy here, China. We had some really great chocolate cake down at Mar-a-Lago, and he's going to play ball with us.
Well, we have to see what happens. We have to see. I mean, Trump is also taking forward position, and now something has to happen. And we'll see what has to happen, because these are not easy problems to solve. But if I can switch to something else you said, it isn't just Netanyahu in the Middle East. He met with al-Sisi from Egypt, who we had, rebuffed very strongly, which is why he then turned to the Russians. And he talked to the Saudis. Now, you can certainly have your own views of the Saudis. I have mine too. But on the other hand, if you're trying to work the problem of Iran, being completely on the outs with the Saudis does not advance your position.
No.
And he's met with
other people. Because they're sworn enemies.
So,
one Shia, one Sunni, Iran.
But it's the building of allies. And then you think, look at remember Obama talked about a pivot to Asia?
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah.
It never happened. Now, in the first 2 months of this administration, you have these long trips by the Secretary of State, Vice President, and these other guys. They're really going out and they're talking to people. And so I find it very interesting. I want to see what comes of this because, and here's another really, I just find this stuff very interesting.
Yeah.
You get the Army Chief of Staff went to visit Afghanistan and he invited Jared Kushner to go with him.
Really?
Trump's son-in-law.
Yeah.
And I think to myself, this is smart.
Mr. Fix-It.
Mr. Fix-It is going to go and he's going to see exactly what I see.
A billionaire in his own right, by the way.
Yeah, but he's going to go see what I see. He's going to hear what I hear, and then he's going to go back and tell the boss.
Yeah.
This is called smart.
Yeah.
In my view.
Yeah.
Because what it's doing is it's trying to take a guy like Trump, who has no national security background. It's trying to give him a very rich feed of good data.
Yeah.
To help make whatever case it is that you want to make in the future. I mean, the first thing you do is you inform the guy of stuff that he couldn't know when he was an outsider. And it's always very different on the inside. And then you hope that you're going to come to convergence because, Trump has said things like, well, we need to get rid of Assad. Okay, we've been down that path before.
Yeah.
So
that's what our next guest will write an article about.
So I personally find it interesting because I think that if this team that's forming, if it comes up with sensible, good ideas, and manages to sell them to the president, and we get some coherence, I don't think you have to have the perfect plan. You have to get going in a good way and do your best, and when you make a mistake, you correct it. And the perfect is the enemy of the good. You just execute. Just go and do it. And
one thing I need, because you are a career professional, you've dealt in these things, you've dealt in difficult situations with warring parties. I need you to reassure me that North Korea, I'm not talking about nukes, I'm not even talking about missiles. I just need you to reassure me that they're not going to be so backed into a corner that they're going to unleash artillery on Seoul, South Korea, and cause,
that's the
untold
risk.
Damage.
That's the risk.
Because, it's almost like I feel somewhat confident in our military that they might be able to neutralize some of these missiles that they fire off. They could neutralize that. I don't think a nuke's going to hit Seattle or something like that. But they're 30 miles from the DMZ to Seoul. And if you've ever seen a nighttime satellite image, it's kind of fun. If you want to Google that, nighttime satellite image, it gives you a stark comparison between a socialist utopia and a free market capitalism. But that's another show. But it's 30 miles from the DMZ to Seoul. And you've got to assure me that this new muscular, forward-leaning, willing to act isn't going to lead to that type of exchange.
There are no assurances. This is high risk.
Yeah.
The problem is, if the guy's unstable and he's already threatening and developing stuff, you have to make hard choices. And you hope you're going to make the right choices. And that's why I think it was smart of Trump to lean on the Chinese.
Yeah.
He's trying to do it in a way that is not military.
And the thing that's happened so far,
whether it will work, I don't know,
is I guess North Korea, the only export they have is some coal, but they have all their fuel and everything that they get from China. And China is like their only customer, except for maybe Libya and Iran when it comes to nuclear technology. But they've actually turned around their coal shipments and aren't buying them for them. They're trying to put the squeeze on them.
You know what they used to export, make a lot of money off of?
North Korea?
Yeah.
What?
Counterfeit dollars.
Is that right?
And we put up with that.
U.S. currency, counterfeit dollars, yeah. North Korea, I've heard of people that, report back, there are no birds there. There aren't birds. Because any bird that's there, they get trapped and eaten. Because the people are just starving. And all this nonsense you see with these parades and all this happy clappy stuff, it's just nonsense.
I'll tell you an awful story.
Like 23 million people and they're starving.
There's a 20-year-old story. When I was at the U.S. mission to the UN in New York in the mid-90s, that was when the first news started coming out about a lot of things in North Korea, because it opened up, and somebody was describing a trip they took. And they
to
had
North Korea?
They were in North Korea, and they had to drive for like 3 hours. They stopped after, I don't know, I'm making it up, but partway through, an hour or something. Why? Because the drivers were so weak from hunger that they didn't have the focus and the concentration to do it without a stop.
Yeah.
And that was then, and this is now. Yeah. You figure it's only gotten worse.
The crazy thing is there's still liberal Democrats out there, liberals in general, that think that communism is just a really great way to organize a government. Like, you see what's going on in Venezuela. GM just today got kicked out, 2,700 people. They've been there since 1948. And the people are starving. The average Venezuelan has lost 19 pounds. Yeah. And you still have these elites that are like, oh, Venezuela is so great, and oh, communism's so great. You know, it's like, just a bunch of nonsense.
It was like that before. I guess people see and hear what they want to see and hear. You know, and not
this like
change.
Love affair with Cuba, and I mean the oppression that's going on. But listen,
anyway.
I just want to introduce our next guest is Joe Bentivegna, and he is going to be joining us now. Joe is a physician who has spent years volunteering in Haiti, and he wrote an article. I'm going to read you part of the article. It talks a little bit about, it's called "The President Trump's Syria Policy Risks His Presidency." And he talks about how he was in Haiti, and he was, no, she's a station. Yeah, and how he was, Joe's just going to be joining us. How he was in Haiti, and they were talking about all the problems in Haiti, and he was saying, well, the Duvalier government has to be overthrown. And then the people responded and said, yeah, but replace it with what? And he said, I don't recall the minister. It was a minister who said that, and here's where it says, I don't recall this minister's name, but let's call him Reverend Bill. He didn't go to Harvard or Yale. He didn't have a foreign service degree from Georgetown University. He was not a Rhodes Scholar. He was a simple Baptist. He went to a simple Baptist seminary in Nowheresville, Mississippi. Yet if Reverend Bill was sitting with the best and brightest when George W. Bush was planning to overthrow Saddam Hussein, he would have asked, and replace him with what? If he was with Hillary Clinton or Barack Obama while they plotted to overthrow Libya's Muammar Gaddafi, he would have asked, and replace him with what? And Reverend Bill was part of Trump's inner circle. He would now insisting that Bashar al-Assad of Syria has to go. He would say, and replace them with what? And he goes on and says, President Trump did a 90-degree pivot from his campaign position, bombed an airstrip in Syria after Assad reportedly used chemical weapons. The Obama administration was assured by the Syrians that these weapons had been destroyed. We saw the video at the beginning, which put the lie to that. Secretary of Defense General Mattis told the president that allowing Syria to get away with such an atrocity was intolerable. General Mattis was correct. A response had to be made, but he goes on and he talks about Libya. He says it's a creation of European cartographers. Help me with that. Cartographers. Syria consists of dozens of ethnic groups and multiple religions that have been in each other's throat for millennia. Thank you so much for joining us.
Pleasure to be here.
I really appreciate it. We're gonna pick your brain on healthcare and where the future of Connecticut is going too, because I know you've had vast experience with that. But what do you think about what we've been saying in light of this very well-received article you wrote about Syria?
Well, your distinguished guest hits the nail on the head. Mm-hmm. I mean, this is a work in progress, what's going on here, and you can't predict the future, and it's very hard to come up with a plan with such a complicated situation. The point of my article was more from a political point of view, that Donald Trump, while he was running, was promising us we would not be involved in this nation building and these foreign wars. Mm-hmm. And he even specifically said during his campaign he was not going to bomb Syria. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden he bombed Syria. Mm-hmm. I say in the article I believe that was necessary because it violated an agreement that had been made with the Obama administration. Mm-hmm. And one thing I find comforting is that when his inner circle is generals. Mm-hmm. And contrary to what maybe the average person thinks, generals hate war. Mm. They hate war because they have to write the letters when kids are dead to their mothers. Yeah. When Eisenhower was president, a total of 8 soldiers died under Eisenhower's presidency. Mm. This man ran World War II. He hated war.
Yeah.
And I'd like to think that Mattis and McMaster hate war, but I do believe this was necessary, but I disagree with the president saying that Assad has to go, because quite frankly, I don't know what you're going to replace him with.
Yeah.
We had a huge vacuum occur in Iraq. You know, Hussein may have been a terrible man, but what did you replace him with?
Yeah.
You know, Gaddafi was a terrible man, but now it's complete anarchy.
Yeah.
So I'm not convinced that if we're going to replace Assad, there's going to be anything there, and you might just have mass slaughter and slaughter and slaughter. And I can tell you this, Trump said he wasn't going to get involved in this, and if you want to see his base disintegrate very quickly, people who supported him, if he gets us involved in a quagmire there, a lot of people are going to be very upset who supported him. And you've even seen conservative columnists who supported him early, such as Ann Coulter and Pat Buchanan, disagreeing with him on this point. And that was the point of the article.
I mean, do you think, in the article you talk about, do you think that the Trump philosophy or this Trump foreign policy is going short of nation building, going short of regime change, going short of Colin Powell's "you broke it, you own it" concept? Like, we don't want to introduce democracy. And I love how you said that. You said, you know, Syria consists of dozens of ethnic groups and multiple religions that have been at each other's throats for millennia. I mean, this Bashar al-Assad is a member of what tribe?
Alawites. He's
The
an Alawite,
Alawites.
yeah.
Okay, and they've been around for 3,000 years.
Exactly.
And Alawites, I mean, forget Sunni and Shia, these are even a subgroup of all this.
Yes.
And so it's almost like mob families running these countries.
It's clans.
Yeah, and you're not gonna break it up by introducing the glories of democracy.
No.
Yeah.
And that was in my experience in Haiti when I spoke to this minister that I allude to. You know, Americans will go around there and say, oh, now we're going to have democracy, but we're trained in democracy. You know, when we're in kindergarten, you know, the most popular kid is elected president, and we think democratically. And so most of us, except the liberals in the last election, accept the result of a democratic election. I mean, you and I might not have liked Obama winning, but we didn't go crazy. See, he won fair and square. That's life.
Yeah.
Get him in 4 years.
Right.
But the point is, democracy is not a system of government. It's a state of mind.
Yeah.
And that state of mind does not exist in these countries. And when we go in there and we try to say, oh, let's play democracy, it just doesn't work.
Okay,
you might be able to get it in 50 or 100 years, but you're certainly not going to get it now.
Follow me on this layman's analysis, and you tell me where I'm wrong too. But if you go back to George H.W. Bush, you got Saddam Hussein, and he invades Kuwait. And George H.W. Bush puts this coalition of everyone you can imagine together. We go in there, expel them from Kuwait in the, 100-hour war, whatever it was. Norman Schwarzkopf, the Hail Mary, great strategy. We get them out of there, but then we leave Hassan in place, Hussein in place there, so he's a counterbalance to Iran. That seemed to leave it sort of stabilized with, the field balanced off. It was only when we went in there, we went into Iraq and decapitated and put Hussein in prison and then eventually had him hung, that things really became destabilized. Do you think Donald Trump's foreign policy will learn a lesson from that, and he'll slap on the wrist someone like the head of Syria with a shot at his, I mean, if he could take out one airport, he could take out the 7 that they have there, but it was a limited attack, and leave them in place, but they're chastened. Is there any
I would
hope
hope so, but unless I misunderstood, there were statements made by him and other diplomats that he wanted Assad removed.
Yeah, there was.
That is what I disagree with. I just don't see how you can remove him, replace him, and then have us involved in that process. I just think it's going to be a huge disaster. You're going to have everyone killing each other, then all of a sudden we're going to try to fix it, and then our body bags of our youth are going to be coming back when we try to fix it. I don't think the American people are going to tolerate that. We've been in Afghanistan for 15 years. We've been in Iraq for a similar amount of time. And President Trump said very clearly in his campaign that he wasn't going to do this. And if he changes his position on this, and all of a sudden a lot of people are getting killed. And you have to understand that the way it is now, it's not the elite, the children of the elite who are getting killed. It's the middle class and the lower middle class who are getting killed over there. And this was sort of a product of the Vietnam War. When you ended the draft, your upper middle class, watches these wars on television.
Yeah, no skin in the game.
The lower middle class and the middle class is watching their kids come back in body bags. It will not be tolerated.
Yeah, I think you're right. What are your thoughts on all this?
Well, we have in the past fought wars, done regime change, and it has worked reasonably well. Examples: Germany, Japan, Korea. But if you want to do that, and I thought about this a lot because I served in Bosnia, that's where we wanted to do intervention light. Same kind of thing. No, I mean, we went in with S4, the stabilization force, but we weren't. What happened in those other countries is we won, and we took over, and we governed. We made the investment that we were going to make certain changes. Took 50 years. I mean, we're still in Germany, right?
That's right.
Still in Korea.
Japan, too.
In Japan. So you'd make this long, so it's not body bags, but it is long-term and it's very expensive. Now, the argument is it's strategically beneficial. Therefore, that's how come it was supported all those years. But what I got very interested in it when I was in Bosnia. And in fact, the flight home when I retired out of Brussels, I was reading Lucius Clay's memoirs because I thought he was the guy, he was the general who got put in charge of Germany immediately after the war. How did he do it? How did he succeed when we failed? Because I felt we were failing. We had peace and quiet, but only on the surface. I mean, we weren't really changing anything important underneath, and we haven't since. So that's kind of disturbing if you think about the amount of effort we put into it. Well, they took over everything. And he was—
In Germany we're talking about.
Yeah, he was able to get Mr. Agriculture to go for a year or two and work on it. Mr. Central Bank, Mr. Money to do the currency. I mean, we put tremendous resources at the disposal of the occupation authority in Germany in those critical early years. We took it seriously. What we did in Bosnia was kind of, as you say, well, the elite say this, and I can tell you what the pressure was on the military commanders that I worked for. No body bags. There was so little support, and people went around saying, force protection is the mission. That's what the soldiers said. And they were pretty sick of it, because if you're there, what are you there for? So this has been going on a long time, this absolute lack of clarity, and that's what I'm hopeful that if we start having a grown-up discussion, if you want to get involved, you're going to have governance after the military action. What is it going to mean? That's a very hard question.
Well, that's almost like the Bush doctrine, where Bush went in and said, okay, we're going to do Iraq. We did Afghanistan, which was a response to 9/11, which begged to have a response. So they went in and they really wanted to root out Al-Qaeda, and they actually did, for better or worse, in Afghanistan. Yet when you go in and try to rule that ancient country, it almost can't be done.
Alexander the Great, soldiers rebelled when they wanted to invade Afghanistan.
The British didn't do very well.
15,000 men in, 1 man out.
Yeah,
Genghis Khan went into Afghanistan, and Genghis Khan crawled out.
Soviet Union went in there. Think Charlie Wilson's war.
And their planes were shot at.
Listen,
those people.
I went in my painting company, Weiss Abbasi and Mohammed Abbasi, shout out to them. I went deer hunting with these guys out in Montana. These guys, the Afghans with rifles, are no joke.
Yes.
I hunted with two of them.
I don't know how we could conquer that country.
Yeah. Okay, but I mean, here we are. And so something short of a World War II greatest generation commitment, which I don't think there's a stomach for anyway. But at the same time, when Donald Trump says the world is a mess, it really is. I mean, I was watching on 60 Minutes, a couple this past weekend. These refugees that are pouring over from Libya, they're coming through Libya. There are more refugees in Europe right now than there were at the end of World War II.
That's right.
And it seems like the modern civilized world, the European Union, is about to bust up. With this shooting they had in Paris tonight, that Le Pen lady, she's going to get elected.
The French might not put her in power. We don't know. Everyone's polling at 20%.
Okay, well, let's see how it all shakes
Yeah.
out. But my point is, the Western democracies have to kind of get a handle on this radical Islamic terrorism that we're seeing. Have to somehow figure out a way to combat that, so we don't have all this nonsense going on. And what I see the Trump administration trying to do is at least take a more forceful approach. You're saying high risk, high reward, but at least there's, like, the adults are in charge. Like, we're not going to put up with this nonsense. We're not going to be politically correct, when call terrorism something like human caused, whatever they call it. I mean, I don't know. I'm reassured.
Workplace violence.
Workplace violence. I don't know. Let's switch gears. We're in the lightning round here just a little bit. I want to talk a little bit about Connecticut politics, which I know is something near and dear to you. By the way, are you running for governor?
No,
Many have
not.
said that you should, be the write-in candidate, that you're clear thinking, you've thought through these issues, healthcare and otherwise. Dan Malloy, thank heavens, is not running again, so you've done your worst. Please exit stage right. What can the Republicans do this time around to not screw it up?
What the Republicans can do this time is not let the party insiders control the system, and they won't do it.
Okay.
The party insiders control the system, and what they do is they manipulate the convention for the candidate that they think is best. They exclude the voters get irritated, the Democrats go in unified, the Republicans felt that they didn't get their fair shake, and we don't go in unified and we lose. That's what happened at the last convention. They manipulated the convention because they didn't want a one-on-one between Boughton and Foley. The party insiders wanted Foley. They knew Boughton would beat Foley in a primary, so they manipulated the convention. They got McKinney in there.
Yeah.
They stopped Boughton from getting the money he needed to get the $250,000 to qualify. Foley beats McKinney after McKinney attacks him, and then he loses the election.
Yeah.
You see this going, and I'm hoping that they'll let the candidates. We've got different factions in the Republican Party.
So, do you like Boughton? You think he would be good?
I like all of them. I just want to win.
Okay, that's exactly where I'm at. I like them. I like Herbst. I like Boughton.
I like all of them.
Lamage
I might have minor differences on policy, but
Sitnik's throwing his hat in there.
Just show me a winner.
Naval Academy guy.
Yeah, show me a winner.
Yeah.
But what I don't want to see is the party insiders think that they're smarter than the voters. Okay, the party insiders, for example, nobody supported Trump. Okay?
Yeah.
Very few.
Yeah.
He wins the primary by 58%. It's like 58%. And the person I like, Kasich, got clobbered.
Yeah.
And then I immediately said, I like Trump. He's going to be our nominee. Kasich gets 27. Cruz gets 17.
Yeah. So could a Trump-like candidate win statewide in Connecticut?
I don't think so, but I think a Trump-like candidate should get respect. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I understand.
In other words, if someone like Visconti or Peter Lamage, who are going to attract more of the Trump-like voters, I don't want to see the party insiders exclude this individual from the ballot and irritate all the Trump supporters and say, geez, this isn't fair. And then all of a sudden they pick Boughton or Herbst or someone they like because they think he's more electable. What I think should happen is they should give Joe Visconti and Peter Lamage and these candidates that will appeal more to the Republican Trump base so that we have a united party to go against the Democrats, because this is ours to lose. You have to look at the last election. The state representatives at the Republican level got 57%.
That's good.
Even though Trump only got 39%. It was a huge shift.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is ours to lose. But these party insiders, they practice losing elections. I mean, I'm convinced of it.
Yeah.
So they have to let Boughton and Herbst, Lamage, and Joe Visconti, and I wouldn't write off Prasad Srinivasan, who's a personal friend of mine.
Okay.
He's a state rep from Glastonbury. He's running for governor. Yeah. He's raised $138,000.
See that? Mayor Boughton has raised like $68,000, but he spent $23,000 to raise $68,000.
Right.
Something like that.
Right. He's hired, I think, consultants.
Yeah, but I mean, he seems like a great candidate.
He is.
He's got Danbury humming pretty good. He's getting outside.
He's got a great track record. Former state rep.
Yeah, good campaigner. He gives a good speech.
Yeah.
He just doesn't seem to be able to raise money somehow.
Raising money is a horrible thing to do. When I ran, you know, you have to raise money. I'm a doctor, and before I was an orderly, and I had to clean bedpans. I would rather do that than sit on the phone and call people
and
up
that's
and
why.
ask
That's
them
why.
for money.
That's why.
It's
I
the most
think
horrible thing to do. And the best politicians are guys who are good at it, and gals who are good at it. That's just the way it is.
Yeah, but I think that's why the Connecticut Republican Party has liked to go with a Linda McMahon, because she can just write the check.
Right, but
she spent $50 million on a state race, and she spent $50 million on a governor's race.
She still got obliterated.
A cool $100 million though, and then everyone gets a little taste. All the I know these guys, consultants, the advertising guy here. Everyone's
gets a
little
good taste. Yeah.
You know, I get the nomination, it's going to be $30,000 for you, and I mean it's all on the up and up. They're paid consultants,
right, but still,
you know, because I've been delegates to some of these campaigns, and these guys are like, you know, listen, my kid needs new shoes. You got to vote for this guy. I'm like, no, I'm voting for Simmons. You know, I told them I'd vote for him.
So you know the game.
Yeah, and they're like going nuts. And then I come to find out there was a $60,000 bonus if she got the nomination. You know, so these guys are like working it hard, not just because they like their candidate. It's a vicious cycle, but I hearken back to guys like, you know, John Rowland. You know, unfortunately, he's incarcerated at this time. Unlike Gannon in Bridgeport, you know, Republicans shy away from formerly incarcerated politicians. Although Gannon's thrown his hat in the ring for the statewide governor.
Being incarcerated helps in Bridgeport.
Yeah, evidently. And then also one of the, I don't know, sons of Robert Kennedy or someone, one of the Kennedy boys.
He's a good candidate, Ted Kennedy Jr.
So.
And I think if he runs, he's not even going to go for the matching funds.
He's just going to get all that Kennedy money?
He's going to get all that. And he did it the last time. He violated the law, and some liberal judge said, oh, it's a Kennedy, and they threw it out. Yeah. But he raised money outside of the system. Then he got money in the system to become the state senator.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And that was illegal, but because he's a Kennedy, they didn't do anything to him.
Wow.
So I don't know what he'll do this time, but I think he'd be a very strong candidate.
Yeah. No, but I agree with you. It's almost like it's kind of deja vu all over again. When the primaries were going on at the presidential level, I liked all those guys.
Yeah,
Kasich, I liked Jeb Bush.
I liked everybody.
I liked Scott Walker. I thought he stood up to the unions. I thought, like, you know, where. But then Trump kept winning, and I'm like, I can do that. I can see Trump.
Yeah,
and by the end, I'm like, I love this guy. He's refreshing. He's you know, tells it like it is.
Especially since president, I like him more every day.
Every single. I love his Supreme Court nomination. I'm noticing I have a painting business, house painting. You know, that's something that everyone needs to do. But when the economy's tight and you think the government's going to come in, people hold back. They're not going to spend the $10,000 to paint their house. I'm telling you, my phone's ringing off the hook since Trump got elected.
That's what everybody says.
I'm telling you, it's great. And I talked to the printer, I talked to the septic tank guy, I talked to the guy that puts pools in. Everyone's like, oh, it's a new day. Yeah, you know, they might not have voted for Trump, but economic confidence is at a 16-year high. They've had something like 12 winning weeks in a row on the stock exchange. They haven't had that in 30 years. Yeah. The stock exchange going up has added something like $3.85 trillion to the economy, just dropped right into everyone's 401k. I mean, I'm not even talking about the Supreme Court justice. I'm pro-life. I'm delighted with that. I'm delighted with illegal immigration down 68% on the borders. I mean, it's just a new day.
Yeah.
I'm very happy.
Yeah, my brother-in-law is a fish broker. Yeah. And he said as soon as Trump won, like the business picked up immediately.
It's great. I mean, there were literally customers. There's a customer in Darien, Connecticut, where this show is on. I won't say his name. He hasn't done any business with me since 1990. I was joking with him. I said, we got to get together more than every 26 years. But they're there. Guys are calling me that, oh, you gave me an estimate to paint my house in 2012. I'm ready to do it now. Now I'm ready to do it. I'm like, breathing again. I love what Donald Trump is doing in his presidency. Yeah. I love the economic activities that are coming. I feel like the value of my home and that there's future and a hope. There isn't this burdens. I mean, the burdens of the regulation that he's lifting off of people. It's just phenomenal. I don't know. Don't get me started.
Yeah.
But how do you see? I mean, we've been talking a lot about internet, but how do you see Connecticut politics? What does the future hold? Is there any hope? Are you got one foot in Boca Raton and you're out of here because this is the worst place to die, or where are we at?
Well, I'm mad. That's what I am. I'm mad. I feel like there's a little black cloud and it's hanging over Connecticut. I see all this stuff going on, but if you look at the total jobs in Connecticut, bad news. You look at the deficit. You look at what you might call deficit denial. That's like, what, the biggest crop in Hartford?
Yeah.
So I'm looking at that and I'm thinking, I agree with everything you said about the Republicans, and I might say some even ruder things. And so you think to yourself, what's it going to take? How much debt? Oh, I see. Let's see. Income tax receipts are down. Does that have anything to do with things like GE leaving?
Yeah.
I wonder. Do you think it has anything to do with this progressive tax on the millionaires and billionaires, and then they're leaving town? Do you think? No, it couldn't have anything to do with, let's raise the tax on heating oil. I like that one. I like that one a lot.
Yeah.
Speaking of regressive
Sure.
taxes that
Well,
hurt
the casinos are regressive.
Yeah,
The casinos are, if we're bailed out by casinos, it really is a moral bankruptcy.
Yeah.
I could go on at length.
Yeah.
So I'm jealous, because I watch the other states and they have a chance, and we're laboring with this ball and chain, and it bothers
the
me.
Democrats want to make it just like one big Hartford, the whole state.
Yeah.
You know, where they win 75% of the vote, but nobody's left.
Yeah. No, I mean, these urban centers in Connecticut, I mean, Bridgeport, it's a disgrace. You know, you go through there, and a once vibrant city, you see all these factories that are empty. Yeah. You see the housing stock just going down.
Yeah, Dave Walker wants to run for governor because he can't sell his house.
Yeah. Well, Joe Visconti, not that I'm a Joe Visconti lackey, but he was going to be here tonight. We'll get you next time, Joe. But he did say, I'm going to blast the hell out of government unions. He says they've got the first dibs on the lifeboats on the state of Connecticut Titanic. He says, and we're all locked in steerage. That's what he said. I mean, he's a very flamboyant guy.
He is a flamboyant
And he might be onto something. And this whole good old boy network with the Republican Party, let's just say J.R. Romano's response to a Joe Visconti candidacy was cool at best. It's something about it's a great country, anyone can run if they want.
Yeah, I saw that.
But, you know, I kind of agree with you a little bit. I think a little bit with Trump that you saw, it was like, it's okay to trust the voters.
Yeah.
The Democrats still don't got it figured out.
Yeah.
The Democrats still think that, like, Putin must have done something. Like Donna Brazil was giving the debate questions to Sir Madam Hillary, who was the anointed one, and the Russians found out about that, or they caused her to do that. And then when they showed the emails where she was cheating, which Hillary Clinton still hasn't copped to, on the debate questions, that somehow this was some master plan by Putin to fool people in Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin to vote for Trump. Don't you understand it's collusion? It's our blessed democracy. Don't you care? Don't you care?
And the funny thing is,
it just cracks me up. I swear, you Democrats are too much. Too much.
He invades the Ukraine. The Democrats say nothing. They shoot the plane out of the sky.
Yeah.
Kill 296 people. So, isn't that interesting? Then all of a sudden they say, you know, they rigged the election. It makes absolutely no sense.
It's pretty crazy.
And there isn't a scintilla of evidence that it's true.
I know, but they're in complete and utter denial. They're going through their series. Thank you so much for coming in. I feel a little better. And Doctor, thank you so much for your work in Haiti and giving us balance on all of this. Thanks for joining us on tonight's show. And next week we've got Steve Obsidnik's coming in, and George Hancock talking about the Revolutionary War, and Kirsha Mayo. She wrote that book about being deceived. We'll see you next week. Good night.